Are you looking for a fun way to win up to 25 times your money this football and basketball season? Test your skills on Prize Picks, the most exciting way to play daily fantasy sports. Just select two or more players, pick more or less on their projections for a wide variety of stats, and place your entry. It's as easy as that. If you have the skills, you can turn $10 into $250 with just a few taps. Easy gameplay, quick withdrawals, and injury insurance on your picks are what makes Prize Picks the #1 daily fantasy sports app. Ready to test your skills? Join the PrizePicks community of more than 7 million players who have already signed up. Right now, PrizePicks will match your first deposit up to $100. Just visit prizepicks.com/bluewire and use code BLUEWIRE. That's code BLUEWIRE at prizepicks.com/bluewire for a first deposit match of up to $100. PrizePicks, daily fantasy sports made easy.
Today's episode is brought to you by Cars.com. With over 2 million vehicles and 50,000 more added every day, Cars.com will match you with the perfect car for you, your budget, your life, your style. And if you're ready to say goodbye to your current car, Cars.com will get you an instant offer to cash it in. Just start by entering your license plate and get matched with a local dealer who will write you the check. So whether you're looking to buy or sell, just go to Cars.com. It's magical.
Coming to you with another edition of Mavs Moneyball After Dark. This time a massive, victorious edition of Mavs Moneyball After Dark as the Mavericks absolutely thumped the Memphis Grizzlies in the Mavericks home opener, 137-96. One of the most dominant games I've seen the Mavericks have, maybe since when they beat the LA Clippers a couple years ago by 50 at the beginning of the season. This was just a pure ass kicking from start to finish. As you can tell by me starting off this podcast, Kirk Henderson, our editor-in-chief, is not on. He decided to kind of take a little personal night. He had some stuff going on. Wanted to have some fun instead of watch what ended up being one of the more entertaining Mavs games we've seen. But I'm joined by one of our great staffers, Matthew Phillips. Matthew, how's it going?
It is fantastic. Some people may love really close games and they are fun, but I will take a blowout as long as we are on the good end of it. There's just a lot of fun things to watch in games like that.
Yeah, I think Kirk sent a message in Slack. I think he's at his 20th high school reunion, which is pretty fun. I don't think I went to my high school reunion. So bravo to Kirk for having the courage. He texted into our Slack or messaged into our Slack and was like, "So am I missing a real banger?" And I'm like, as a fan and pure entertainment value, yeah, you're missing one. As maybe a content creator, it's still awesome, but it's kind of like when a game gets this out of control. And Matthew, I know you'll be able to find plenty of things to talk about because that's why you're great at what you do. But it's just kind of at a certain point, the game was so lopsided. I was just like, I don't know what to say except Mavs good. I think before we get into the meat of it, not to discount anything the Mavericks did because they played a exceptional game. I do want to get some qualifiers out there for maybe the one Memphis guy that might listen and get really upset. The deck was really stacked against Memphis tonight. It was kind of outrageous that the game was scheduled like this. This was Memphis. Memphis was playing on the second night of a back-to-back, and it was a close game last night. They played in Houston. So all their main guys were playing, into the, toward the end, all the way throughout the game in the fourth quarter. It was their third game in 4 nights. They're missing, 2 key players, Dylan Brooks and Jaren Jackson, due to injury. The Mavericks playing their home opener on 2 days rest. And I feel like Luka on 2 days rest is basically a Terminator. I mean, he's already a Terminator, but he's like even more so on 2 days rest. And it's the Mavericks home opener. And even if all things are equal, the Mavericks just really own this Memphis matchup. So like, just to get that out of the way, this was like 100% a schedule loss for Memphis. But on the other hand, good Lord, where do you even want to start? You want to start with Christian Wood? Like there's so many, I mean, basically everything that could go right for the Mavericks went right. So where do you want to go to first, Matthew?
Yeah, I would say Wood's got to be the first place we start, just because, I mean, whatever, like I was super bullish on Wood.
Yeah,
I really
were
liked
both really high.
Yeah. I really liked him. And even that said, he's average. I mean, he scored 50 points in 49 minutes in the 2 games. Like that's Wilt Chamberlain-esque. I mean, it's stunning how much. I mean, it would have been 1 game for Wilt because he would have played the whole game, but it's stunning how good he's been. And one of the things that I think kind of gets lost in the wayside with him is when he went to Houston, he went to play with Harden. I think how happy he is to be with that kind of creator. Like, I think that could be part of why he's good, which I understand it's a honeymoon phase. I understand that at some point he will have a bad game and everything. But I mean, like, even if you look at tonight, it's just, you can't judge statistics through 1 or 2 games because there's just not enough of a sample size. So it drives me nuts when people are like, oh, this lineup has a net rating of, plus 50 in 8 minutes, because that just means they went on like a 12-6 run at some point. But, the thing with him, you can judge process. And like tonight, he only made 1 of 3 threes. It's not like he was just hot or anything like that. Like, in the process with him right now is so good. I mean, the passing, I didn't know he could do that. Like, I would like to pretend like, oh yeah, I always knew this was here. I didn't know that he could pass like this. I don't think you did. I honestly don't think anybody aside from maybe he did. And that's the most important thing for me, is just because I think that is fundamentally ceiling changing for the Mavericks.
Yeah, I told this to Kirk after the Phoenix game. Like, I wrote like almost 2,000 words on the guy. And I know you've written some preseason coverage previewing his upcoming season as well. And I wrote damn near 2,000 words. I didn't get to, like, I didn't mention his passing at all. Like, it just did not come up watching tape of him in Houston. And like, he has 2 assists in Phoenix, and he should have had at least 4, because 2 of his really nice passes, Mavericks players got blocked at the rim. Maxey got blocked at the rim, and Dorian got blocked on the rim at the rim. And then tonight he had 3, but he probably should have had 4 or 5. I think Maxey got blocked at the rim again on another nice pass from him. He had a really nice potential hockey assist. I think Tim Hardaway Jr. missed the jumper, but he drove and started a really nice passing chain that ended up in a Mavericks miss. I mean, it's kind of unbelievable. Like, if this is part of his game, again, it's only 2 games, but like, just like you said, we have to readjust some expectations if this guy can legitimately make plays out of the short roll, which is what he's been doing so far in 2 games. Like, just Luka running pick and roll with Luka or Dinwiddie, whoever's the point guard, catching it around the free throw line when a team, is either hedging or trapping or just playing really aggressively on the ball. And he's made the right play almost, like, feels like 9 times out of 10. He did have 2 turnovers tonight, but I mean, it's pretty stunning how effective he is at moving the ball so far.
Well, one of the big things, so Dwight Powell has obviously been the Mavs' best short roller over the last couple of years, and he's not exactly a short roller per se, but just in competence, like when they trap Luka, give Powell the ball, and he'll make the right pass to keep the sequence moving, more so than any of the other Mavs big men. The difference between him and Wood is that he is a threat. Like, if you remember when the Mavs play, like when the Mavs played the Nets last year, when they started trapping Durant really hard and everything, and it kind of annoyed Durant, what they ended up with was Bruce Brown having to make decisions from, 18 feet, and just nobody guards him. And there's nothing. The problem with that for Wood is Wood's always going to have space in that area just because of how much attention Luka gathers, because you can't guard Luka with one person there. You have to pay a bunch of attention to him because he's one of the best offensive engines in the history of basketball. I know that sounds hyperbolic, but it's true. And so because of that, Wood is always going to have an advantage in that spot. And the problem is you can't just let him, like a lot of the guys that end up in those spots, your Draymonds, your Bruce Brown, like I mentioned, like other people, even Dwight Powell, anything like that, those guys aren't threats to score. And that's why they end up being short rollers, is because they can't score. So they have to pass out of necessity. Wood can score. Like, Wood's scoring is his primary talent. And he's a threat both ways to score from there too, in that he can shoot. Like he has 18-foot range, obviously, because he is out to 3-point range and is a very good 3-point shooter. And he also has his off the dribble game. I mean, I knew he could create off the dribble, but like he crossed Tyus Jones over today, who's a point guard. I mean, it's like he has such good body control and everything from there. So because of that, he's going to draw attention. And that's where a lot of the passes come from, is he draws a defender out, which is why a lot of his passes lead to shots at the rim, which I think really matters. Because for the Mavericks and their offensive ecosystem, so many of their shots are threes. And there's a ton of value to drawing attention to the rim and kicking out for open threes. But I understand analytics. I get the value of threes, and I'm not at all complaining about those. But there is also a lot of value in getting guys layups. And so it helps that a lot of the looks that he creates are at the rim as he's drugged people away from there.
Yeah, for sure. You mentioned a couple points I wanted to bounce off of from that you hit. They're really good. You talked about him being a threat to score when he catches, which has been different from just almost every other Mavericks big man that has run a pick and roll the last 5 years. And I mean, even Kristaps, he didn't roll enough to do that. Like, he might have been a threat, but he was mostly a pick and popper. With Wood, he's not necessarily even like a mid-range guy. Like, he's not necessarily a guy that's going to pull up and hit a jump shot from the free throw line extended. He barely shot any mid-rangers in Houston. Surprise, surprise. It didn't shoot a high percentage. But like you said, he's just so good and talented at catching and then getting to the spot he wants to get to closer to the rim. And he's got great touch and he's got great athleticism, length. He's got speed. So he's able to, catch it. And even if he's not necessarily looking to shoot a jumper with that open space, he can take that open space and manipulate it into a shot at the rim, get to the foul line. I mean, he got to the free throw line 14 times tonight. Good for him for hitting 12 of them. That's like really nice to see after what he did in Phoenix when he was 3 for 10. So like that's part of it. And then another part you talked about, like, his off the dribble game, and you knew it was good, but maybe not this good. When I was watching like tape on him over the summer, like he had a really explosive, mid post first step dribble drive where he would kind of catch the ball in a post up near the elbow, and then he would face up, and then boom, he's gone. He'd just leave his defender flat footed. You're right. Like, he's taking guys off the dribble from the 3-point line so far this season, which I did not expect. And he made a good pass. I think he had a drive that started outside the 3-point line, and he made a good pass to a corner shooter. I don't think the shooter ended up shooting, but like, it all looks really, really good. And it's kind of crazy. This is kind of what we've been talking about for like the last 3 years. And again, it's 2 games, so let's see if it holds up. But so far through 2 games, like, this is what we've been begging for, right? Like, just an all-star level of talent next to Luka. It just makes so much of a difference. Like, it's not, you might have said this before, or written this before, or someone else on our site did, but like, it feels like Luka is not pulling blood from a stone with Wood like he might with some of the other guys on the roster that kind of depend on Luka to reach their full potential. Like, Christian Wood's already pretty good, offensively, and Luka is just amplifying him instead of like drawing something out of him, if that makes sense. And it makes a world of difference. Like, Luka hasn't had an all-star teammate since he's been drafted here, and Lord knows if this continues, he's going to be the first one, which, I mean, I think we all made some predictions about that, but 2 games in, it's nice to see.
Yeah, the thing I will say with that is that he's the first one of Luka's teammates that makes the game easier for Luka too, which we can transition because we got to talk about Luka too. Yeah. Is like so many of the other teammates, and I mean, like I have nothing. I will never say a negative word about Dorian Finney-Smith or Reggie. No, I love him and I love Reggie Bullock and all that. But like offensively, at least, their game isn't to make the game easier for Luka. I mean, they spot up, they give him space and whatnot, but beyond just spacing the floor, nobody that Luka's played with has made the game easier for him, other than for like a 2-game stretch. Like, KP's done it for a couple of game stretches, which I realize Wood's only done it for a couple of game stretch right now. But just, he's so dynamic. And because of that, everything that goes with, he makes it easier for Luka. And Luka's in shape, which, like I said, we'll transition to Luka now. Because, I mean, we talk about like, we've always talked about what would happen if Luka came into a season in shape. He's real good. I mean, like, It reminds me a little bit. Luka is better, obviously, but if you remember in the Dirk and Josh Howard days, Josh Howard was the starter. Like Josh Howard led the league in first quarter scoring like 2 or 3 years in a row. If I'm wrong on that stat, I apologize. But I mean, like he was up there for a while.
Yeah.
And
At the very least, he led the team in first quarter.
Yeah, like every game it was come out and like into the first quarter, Josh Howard has 14 points and finished with 21. Luka, he obviously finishes with more and everything, but man, he comes out, he is the starter. He comes out like he's in shape right now, and he is just coming out like just firing on all cylinders. And it's just fun to watch, man. Like there's not anything when I look at him that I'm like, man, I really wish he would do that. I mean, occasionally he takes some threes that I'm like, yeah, we could dial that back, buddy. And then if you want to say anything negative is, I don't believe he got a technical today, but he was arguing a lot for a game they were up.
He tried to get one.
Up winning. Yeah, like I thought he was going to get one. I was like, man, you only get so many of those a year. Like, don't waste one in this game. But that's seriously nitpicking. I mean, he was just so stunningly good. And I mean, like, it's against a good, solid team. I mean, all of the caveats that you mentioned earlier definitely apply. But one of the strengths for Memphis is how deep they are and how young they are and all of that. And Taylor Jenkins tried. Like, they called 4 timeouts in the first 15 minutes of this game. That is not a team that's just like – that is not a team that has accepted, hey, guys, it's just a scheduled loss where, it's not going to work. They tried. I mean, and Ja ended up having he worked his way to a pretty solid game. But Luka right now, I don't see what the answer to him is. I mean, the answer is to foul him and not get called. But that's even that. He's so strong. He's got such good touch, and he's got so much flair. Which I'm curious. I wasn't able to go back and check and see if they credited the ball that he was arguing was a pass, which I really kind of think it was. If you remember the play I'm talking about, where he got to the rim and then went underneath the rim and shot a reverse layup it was either a reverse layup that he missed by 4 feet or one of the coolest passes I've ever seen in my life for an alley-oop that I really think it was a pass. Only he truly knows that. And if it was anybody but Luka, I would never buy that it was at all. But he tries wild stuff. So it makes sense that they were up far enough that it makes sense that he would have tried stuff like that. So, but that was one of the most fun plays I've seen.
This is advertiser content brought to you by Frito-Lay.
Hello, I'm Chip Murphy, here to get you ready for the big tournament. Tonight we'll break down who will be cutting. Cut! What are you two doing?
Sorry, Chip. Prez here got his feathers ruffled when I told him Ruffles has 0 chance of winning the title.
And I was letting Dip know that she is not taking into account Ruffles' iconic ridges.
Guys, it's March. We have to start talking about the tournament.
We are. It is the 2023 Frito-Lay Snack It.
We're talking about big-time matchups between Cheetos, Smart Food, Lay's, Sun Chips, and more.
Just head to the Frito-Lay Snack Bracket and vote for your favorite chip, pretzel, or dip for a chance to win up to $1,000 or a year's worth of snacks.
This sounds great. Keep up the good work.
Just go to fritolaysnackit.sbnation.com. No purchase necessary. Sweepstakes ends 4/3/2023. Void where prohibited. Here's worth of snacks awarded in the form of 52 coupons, each good for 1 bag of chips. See official rules at fritolaysnackit.sbnation.com.
So against Phoenix, you talked about him being a starter. Against Phoenix, he had an amazing first quarter. And it was 13 points, 3 assists. He was 6-9 from the field. He played all 12 minutes, by the way. Tonight, played all 12 minutes again, 21 points, 3 assists, no turnovers, 4 rebounds, 3 or 4 from 3, 8 of 10 from the field. I mean, it reminds me of the 2019-2020 Luka that started the year, if you remember. He came out like gangbusters and he was basically like LeBron at the rim. He was shooting like 72% at the rim that year. The problem was he just couldn't hit a damn 3 the entire season. So the fact that like he had a game like tonight where he was basically unstoppable at the rim, like he has been in the past, but he also made his 3-pointers for the most part, 4 of 9, which is really nice. And I think the big difference is, I mean, we're starting to see the trend. He's playing the entire fourth quarter. He's playing the entire first quarter, and maybe it changes a little bit when Campazzo is able to suit up when they get through his visa issues. But right now, with Dinwiddie being the quote backup, unquote point guard, but still being a starter. They're playing Luka throughout the whole first quarter, and then Dinwiddie comes back in, checks out in the first, then comes back in the second. That's when Luka gets his break. I think I just want to say the big difference for a game like tonight, I mean, they won by 1 million points. It was going to happen anyway. But a big turn in that Phoenix game was Dinwiddie getting foul trouble in that third quarter, going to the bench, and Luka kind of had to do work even harder than he already was at running offense. And with Dinwiddie on the floor more, I mean, he played the same amount of minutes, but obviously with the blowout, like he was on the floor for more minutes with Luka. Like I think that makes a world of difference. And I think in the second half, Luka kind of wore down just a little bit because Dinwiddie basically didn't play for most of the second half. And this time he did, and Luka just never missed a beat the entire game.
Yeah, I think there's a lot to that. I also think there's something to Dallas let up. I mean, you got to understand it as of halftime of the first game, Dallas had won the last 10 quarters against Phoenix by approximately 1 billion points. I think it was actually 77. But for 10 quarters against a really good NBA team, one team having owned you for 77 points in 10 quarters is approximately 1 billion. They're right at the same thing. But I think they let up a little bit. And so that's actually one of the other reasons that I'm so excited about this team so far is, again, it's 2 games. The Utah Jazz are 2-0, and I'm pretty sure they're going to be in the Victor Wembanyama, I can't pronounce his name, sweepstakes. So don't go too crazy. But the Mavs, I think they came out, they showed how good they are, and they dominated the first half there, and then they just let up. Like, it happens, it shouldn't happen. As fans, we can be upset about it. But I think a lot of that happened. I do think there's something to, they did miss having another ball handler when Dinwiddie went out. But I really just think they're good. And I think they just kind of let the second half get away from them there. But I have my predictions on this team have gone way up after 2 games. Like, I'm a lot higher on this team than I was coming into the season. I was pretty high on this team before the season started, but they are just offensively, I think they're going to be the best offensive team in the history of basketball. That, like, statistically, which they already had done a couple years ago, so that may not be as outlandish of a prediction as it seems.
Yeah, it sounds crazy when you say it, and then you realize, oh wait, they broke it, and then like 8 teams broke it the following year. That number that they set.
I don't think the bubble season, like, I don't really count the bubble season the same way. I'm not saying like it doesn't count as far as, but it's just, there's a lot of stuff as far as shooting that we've seen that was just it was different. And so, like, it's just, it's not that it shouldn't count. It's just, it's different than everything else. So I think that they're going to be a 118, 119 points per 100 possession offensive team. And if they're that, and they're not the worst defensive team in the history of time, I think they're going to win close to 60 games, if not 60 games.
Oh, here we go. That's what I want to hear. I don't know if I can get on that ledge with you yet after 2 games, but I certainly believe the take about the offense. I mean,
also on the defensive end, I've been impressed with Wood on the defensive end too. Not that I think he's, a fantastic defender. I'm not hyping him for like the all defensive team or anything dumb like that, but you can tell that he's trying, and that he is trying to use the gifts that he has. Like, he's been super active. He's used he's had his arms out in the passing angle. He's been trapping and hedging really hard on pick and rolls and everything. Because sometimes you see people play hard, but they don't play to their strengths. Like, you'll see a guy like him who'll like try to muscle up on somebody, and it's just like that's not your game, man. Like, it's play hard but play smart. And for the most part, like, I've been happy with him on that end. Like, I don't think that he's someone that's just going to get taken advantage of. I mean, as far as a team defensive concept, and if that's the case, I really do. As long as they're healthy, I see really, really good things for this team.
Yeah, I will say, since he still has to earn the benefit of the doubt on the defensive end after what he's done in his career up till now, I will say he looked good. He's looked totally acceptable on the defensive end. And then the thing that I'll say is, through 2 games, at least on the defensive end, I'm not seeing anything from him that, like, JaVale McGee can't get, like, that JaVale McGee needs to give you, or like that, like, I'm not seeing like the difference. Because
you're not seeing why JaVale McGee has to start.
Yeah, like, I'm not like I understood the thought process before the season, even if it was a little weird. But so far through 2 games, I'm not seeing such a drastic defensive difference between McGee and Wood to necessitate Wood start or McGee starting so far. But I mean, hey, it's 2 games. We'll see how it goes. And I mean, clearly things are working well right now. And I mean, if Wood keeps doing his part, they'll figure out the lineup stuff. Like that'll take care of itself.
He's obviously going to start. I do think one of the things with him has always been his attitude, has been complaints about, whatever. He's taken this as well as possible, which is if you think you should start, and he does, he absolutely thinks he should start, and you get put on the bench, it's not go mope and be upset. I mean, like we've compared it to the Nerlens Noel situation. It's not go mope and be upset and eat hot dogs and do all that and make the team mad. It's go play out of your freaking mind and make it obvious to everyone why you should start. Like that is the correct response. I mean, like we can say whatever we want and we can be like, hey, this is weird. But Jason Kidd has eyes. Jason Kidd's a basketball, like he understands basketball at a level beyond me. So I'm not gonna argue that at all. But he sees this. Like there is no one watching this that's like, man, JaVale McGee or Christian Wood, who's better? The one devil's advocate point that I will say to this is that at times when it can be frustrating for people to be in not a bigger role than they are, when they're dominating in the role that they are, sometimes that role is good for them. And the example I'm going to give you for that is it's a cross sport analogy, but everybody's always said for Russell Wilson, let Russ cook. Russ would be so good if people would just let him do this, yada, yada, yada. Seattle's holding him back. This offense makes him look worse than he is. It doesn't let him play to his full potential. Well, it turns out that as soon as he got away from that fence, Geno Smith looks real good, and Russ can't cook. He can make some ramen noodles. So a lot of times the situations that, like when somebody looks so good that we should elevate them, that situation may be good for them. And I do think Wood should start, but just devil's advocate, he looks so good in this role that you might not want to take him out of it.
Yeah, hard to argue. All great points. It's so nice when you think about something for millions and millions of hours, like, and you're just thinking about this stuff, and you're like, all right, like it's gonna work, right? Like I'm looking at the data, I'm looking at the tape, I'm looking at how he fit, like it's gonna work, right? And it's always nice to get that kind of early reward, and it's especially working with Wood. Before we get out of here, because we are running a little bit out of time, I want to give you 2 stats and tell me what you think that have caught my eye, because they're probably early trends that we need to keep an eye on that will go a long way to telling us how successful this Mavs season is. So 2 games in, Reggie Bullock is 5 of 9 from 3, and Spencer Dinwiddie is 6 of 10 from 3. And if you remember last season, of course, it took Bullock like almost 3 months to get his 3-point shot in line. It was a big reason why the Mavericks struggled. One of the reasons the Mavericks struggled out the gate last season. And then Dinwiddie, he was a revelation when he came to Dallas last year and just shot way over his career norms from 3 when he got to Dallas. And a big question this summer was, okay, he probably can't sustain that, but how far does it drop? Can he at least still be productive from behind the line? And 2 games in for both those guys, and it's looking good. What do you think?
So Xavier and I argued so much about Dinwiddie and his shooting, and I was adamant that Dinwiddie was not a great fit with Luka because he's not a good shooter, and he just has been since he's got here. And there's something to the fact that he gets better looks and all of that, but it's not like he's just taking catch and shoot threes. Like he's still taking what I call the Spencer Dinwiddie shots, because like I think of people and how they do things. Like for me, Spencer Dinwiddie 3 is the side dribble to the right. 3, just like the Luka 3 is the step back to the left. So like I think side dribble to the right, like step back jumper for Dinwiddie. That's what I think of as the Dinwiddie 3, and he still takes a bunch of those, and he's just made a bunch of like the little machine gun dribble, side dribble to the right, shoot 3. Like he's just made them. He's turned into Steph Curry shooting those threes, and if both of those things hold, which obviously we talked about last year with Bullock, a lot of times he starts slow, but Bullock is a very good shooter. But if both of those guys make threes like that, I really, it goes back to what I said about the offense. I don't see how you stop the Mavericks at that point. Like it really does get into, because you have to give up something. And when they can run the loop, because I think eventually at some point the Mavericks version of a death lineup is going to be Luka, Dinwiddie, Reggie, Dorian, and Wood, provided he can hold up defensively and doesn't have to have basically a training wheel. I don't see any possible way to stop that lineup defensively. Like if you were asking me, if you're like, hey, how do we go in? How do we shut this down? Like, what is the thing? What you have to hope for is you have to be like, hey, we need Spencer Dinwiddie and Dorian Finney-Smith to shoot threes. Like, we have to make them shoot threes. That's the goal. And if Spencer is shooting this well, I trust Dorian as a shooter now. I mean, he's been a 39% three-point shooter for, I think, 3-4 seasons now. So it's,
yeah, for sure.
I mean, like, they've got enough of a track record. Like it, and Dinwiddie was a 20-point-a-game scorer running his own offense. Like he, again, like you talked about earlier about Luka not having that, like being able to amplify rather than draw out. And like Dinwiddie is a good NBA player on his own. Like both of those things. And so you just look at it, you look at the talent, and it is not a fun offense that I would want to try to stop. Like if you're going into this, because a lot of times even really good offenses, you're like, well, you know, if we can do this, like for instance, with Milwaukee's a really good team and everything, and they're fantastic offense. But you're like, hey, if we can build a wall against Giannis and do this, then there's some other things. There's some rickety parts of the offense, and that's been the case for the Mavericks recently, which is, you know, you can be like, hey, Maxey had to be in there, and just hope that it's, you know, one of the month-long stretches where he's not confident making a three. But with that offense, I really don't see what the answer is. I mean,
it's hope Luka gets worn out, maybe, with the historic usage rate. Yeah.
Hope Luka gasses or gets in foul trouble. I mean, that's the other thing, is attack them on the other end. But Luka, I feel like Luka's been pretty solid defensively. I mean, I kind of realized that I over defended his defense over the last couple of years. I've never thought he was great or anything, but I have thought that he was over maligned. And in this case, like I've gone back and looked at a lot of stuff and realized that I was just wrong. But I think that he's been decent-ish so far this season. Like, I mean, certainly, again, not trying to advocate for an all-defensive team or anything like that. But, I mean, he's been basically the deal for Luka is if Luka is an average defender, those are real close to unbeatable. If Luka is among the worst defenders in the league, they have problems. And he's been much more of that defender than among the worst defenders in the league.
Right, and that goes right back to being in shape to start the season. So it all kind of ties in together.
Absolutely.
Well, I don't have anything else. Matthew, do you have anything else before we get out of here?
I do not, other than to say that way to go, Tyler Dorsey, also knocking down, you know, a bunch of shots at the end. Happy for him.
The preseason's just not his bag, I guess.
Yeah, he's just saving it for when it counts.
That's the true sign of a veteran right there. Also, one more thing before we go, I think we need to eventually start tracking Josh Green's shot attempts because he has won through about 33 minutes of game time. Not trying to knock him. I mean, everyone that got on the floor tonight played well. Everyone was a plus. No one was a minus in the box score, which is, you do not see that too often in NBA games. So that's another thing I might want to track. See how many shots Josh Green gets up this season, especially compared to Jaden Hardy. We have a kind of a fun hypothetical or bet. No one's really bet, but we're just thinking about it in our Slack about who finishes the season with more shot attempts, Jaden Hardy or Josh Green. And so far, Hardy is leading by a 3-1 margin. So we'll see how that goes. Otherwise, yeah, I think we should get out of here. I mean, the Mavericks just won by 41 points. One of the more dominant wins they've had in a while. Mavericks 1-1. They play the New Orleans Pelicans next on Tuesday. So this kind of running through a little bit of a Western Conference gauntlet here to start the season, but the team can carry any of this over into Tuesday. We should have another fun night. Pelicans look awesome. So that should be a really fun game. Mavs on 2 days rest again. They're off Sunday and Monday. So that should be a really fun game. Luka will be in Terminator mode, well rested. So come back for that Tuesday night. I'm sure Kirk will be back. Matthew, thanks again for joining us. You can check out his stats post, which will be, if you're listening to this podcast, it will already be live on the site. So thanks for kind of doing some double duty for us tonight. And thanks for joining me. We'll definitely have you on again, as me and Kirk probably need to rotate and take some breaks.
Thanks for having me. It's a lot of fun. And we didn't mention this since it was a 41-point game. Anything with the Mavs that ends up with 41, got to say we love Dirk.
Yeah. That's the best way to end a podcast right there. So for Josh and for Matthew of MavsMoneyball.com, we'll talk to you guys Tuesday night after the Pelicans game. Again, Mavericks mollywop the Memphis Grizzlies 137-96. Mavericks are 1-1 on the season. We'll talk to you guys later.